It's very early on in Warzone 2, and although we haven't found a definitive meta at this point because it is very early on, the game's been buggy, people had trouble downloading it, I thought I'd give you a heads up on some weapons that I think are a little bit more of a standout. You can kind of pick what makes the most sense based off what you've leveled already, whether you're going to level it in DMZ or in multiplayer. These are kind of the front runners, at least in my opinion. So we have the RPK, not in any particular order. This is one of my favorites in terms of the class setup. I'm using this SZ Vortex 90, and this one is kind of like a green dot optic. And then when it zooms out, you kind of have the other optic. And this one works pretty good. Obviously, if you're going to zoom in a little bit further for long range. And this is kind of how it's built out. Polar Fire S, FTAC Ripper with the high velocity. And then so the bullet rag is a little bit better because all the barrels hurt your recoil. I kind of want to avoid that. And we got the FTAC stock. In terms of the tuning, we're kind of, if it's long range, we're going for recoil smoothness, bullet velocity, going for recoil stabilization, aiming idle stability. A lot of those that are built towards that. Flinch resistance, not as important. We need a little bit better aim down sight. And kind of the meta on eye position has been to slide this all the way to the right, which makes it a little bit interesting for screenshots. I know there's going to be a lot of these things with all these weapons. Just kind of giving you a general consensus on kind of what we're doing here. Aim down sight speed with aiming stability. And then that's kind of how you build all of those individual ones out. Recoil smoothness, you leave the bullet velocity and recoil steadiness alone because you don't want to hurt the bullet velocity. But you could, if you felt like you needed a little bit more recoil steadiness, you could drag this one over and then have that built in this way. Keep in mind, it is an LMG, so it's going to be a little bit slower, but doesn't have a ton of recoil. And that's a 50-meter target at the furthest distance. Then we have the Lachmann sub. This one is all around good damage per mag, especially in trios, quads, those types of things. Build, you can see here, SMGs are built a little bit more for mobility, strafe speed, sprint to fire time, a lot of those types of things. So this one, when we actually look at this weapon, we can kind of see how it's not particularly slow. It's not super fast, but it also doesn't have a lot of recoil. You can kind of beam people at these ranges. This is a little bit too far that you'd probably have an SMG. You can hit those shots, but keep in mind that it's really designated for like the 30-ish and under, and then you swap to your long range, whether you find one on the ground and you pick this one up, or you're getting a stronghold weapon, black sight, you're buying from the buy station. There's a combination of different factors you can go with to build that out. If you do want to go overkill, there is only one perk package that will allow for overkill, and that is the weapon specialist, which allows you to have that. Then you're forced to have strong arm, spotter, and survivor, which aren't necessarily top tier perks, so you're sacrificing a lot just to have that overkill, but it is an option there. You can see that the tuning on these: aim down sight, bullet velocity, the shark, we got aim down sight, and then walking speed, aim walking speed, nothing there, nothing there. Those attachments don't have it. And then there's nothing tuned here, even though you could go aim down sight, sprint to fire, and there you go. And that's kind of how this would build. And you still have pretty good recoil control. And the iron sights are something that we've had forever. Next one up is the MCPR. Sniping does not one-shot headshot unless the person only has 2 plates or less. If they have 3 plates, it'll just fully break their armor. But the sniper that we have for here is all built for bullet velocity, FTAC Reaper, the 22 OMX with this Slogger PQ, and this one are basically aim down sight, laser, and then we have the max bullet velocity. So everything's set to bullet velocity. We don't really need to worry about range on the sniper because it's going to have that same bullet velocity, aim down sight. We're not focused on that recoil. This one's kind of left alone, aim down sight. And then that's kind of how we build it. And we do the 5-round mag because that speeds it up a little bit in terms of aim down sight. You can kind of see how this one looks. Not super slow. And pretty controllable. So built out there, and we'll keep it moving. The Vaznev 9K. This is a very solid weapon, and you can kind of see this one built for aim down sight speed without the visible laser. We're running a suppressor, 45-round mag. We got the True Tac, and then the Marquise stock. And this will help with the strafe speed. Kind of see we have the aim walking movement speed. We could actually go aim down sight speed if we wanted a little bit further. And then the one we have right here for this tune, we have it set to aim down sight, sprint to fire. And that's kind of what we have for all the close range. And long range, we do aim down sight speed and then bullet velocity. Then we actually use this one. It has a little bit more recoil than we saw with the MP5 or the Lachmann sub. Especially at range, it can be a little bit trickier, but still a very good gun. Decent mobility. little bit slower because of the way the build is with the bigger mag. Obviously, you need a bigger mag when you're playing Battle Royale because everyone has plates, armor. Even though there is fast TTK, you got to kind of balance that out. EBR is a very nasty sleeper one. It does very high damage, especially if you're getting those headshots in the mix. These are the build that we have here. And for the tuning, we are going aim down, sight speed, aiming, idle stability, because aiming, walking steadiness, we don't really need that when we're not like striping while we're walking with this thing. So you're kind of just pushing towards the strengths of the gun. Recoil, steadiness, damage, range. You could go aim down sight because the range is less important, but you still want to make sure that you're maximizing that within those damage ranges, so you don't need like an extra bullet to get a down. Recoil, smoothness, bullet velocity, and that's kind of how we have that built out with that SZ Vortex and the extended mag. So pretty much when it comes through here, so relatively easy. Obviously, it's semi-auto, which usually doesn't end up being nearly as popular, but you're going to be able to do a ton of damage to melt people, and that's kind of the build there. And then we got the TAC 56. This one has a little bit more recoil at range. That's why we're running the RF Crown instead of a suppressor. A lot of times, if they have a little bit lower recoil, that is more manageable. Suppressor for bullet velocity along those things. But these ones get tuned for stabilization and gun kick recoil control. The Tundra barrel, which gives you recoil steadiness, damage. And then we also have the same, you can go ahead and do the meta. Like I said, you push this far, and then you can do aim down sight or flinch if you kind of want to help out that. We got the Tactique Brute stock, which has the aim down sight speed, aiming, idle stability, and then we use a 60 round mag. Obviously, if you're playing like solos or something, you could probably get away with less. And this is kind of how this build would pop out. Not a ton of recoil. It does get a little bit wonky, I will say that. At range, this is 50 meters. As soon as I shoot the target, you can kind of see it gets a little bit shaky. But that's also because I'm not shooting at a physical target. There's no aim assist there. There's a lot of variables. It is relatively, as you can see, when there is a target, can get a little bit wild, especially knocking someone off a head glitch, and that is with the RF Crown. So this is more of a high skill weapon, I would say. Low recoil within its, but still enough recoil at 100. We're not going to get the growl or the kilo levels of recoil in this game. Even the best builds that I've seen with the optimal tuning, no matter the weapon, it never gets quite as low as that where you're beaming somebody 150 meters. You can on occasion, but to do it with the consistency we saw with the growl, the kilo from Modern Warfare and Warzone 1, it just doesn't. That's just not practical. Then we got the Fennec. This thing is very nasty. It kills fast. It's super forgiving. A lot of the fast fire rate guns are forgiving. The bullet velocity is a little bit lackluster. You can see we're using the X10 RR40, and that gives us a little bit of bullet velocity, among other things. We're with aim down sight speed, bullet velocity, because we're trying to solve a little bit for that. We got aim walking speed or recoil steadiness. This one really depends on where you're at recoil control wise. And then we got aim down sight speed to the left there. And then we got the laser, and this one's just the aim down sight. If you don't care about the visible laser, you can go this one, which will give you that sprint to fire speed on top of that. The stock, I have that for aim down sight speed, walking speed. You could get rid of this one. It does hurt your recoil just a little bit. It helps with the aim down sight speed. There are other attachments you can go. I know one other one that is popular is going to be the one down here with the recoil control. And then you set this one up to aim down sight and then sprint to fire speed. That's probably the route I would go with the 45 round mag. And then you can kind of see this one. It is going to be a little bit harder to hit targets at range just because the bullet velocity, not so much the recoil. The fire rate's super fast. You burn through bullets. But it gets a little bit tricky when the target's so small with just the iron sights. But we got pretty decent up to about 30-ish meters. This will be good too. So you can kind of see how that works. It's a little bit slower than the other builds that we've looked at, but its TTK is ridiculous, off the charts, especially 2-plate TTK. So broken. Keep it going with the Bass P. This is a brand new SMG that we just unlocked. Is the M13 variant SMG version. We got 50 round mag, the D37 grip. You can kind of see how that's built out. Then milliwatt laser, 1 milliwatt. Or then we have the barrel, which helps with all of those things. Does hurt a little bit. And this is more of a sniper support. It can be a little bit tricky to use after the first shots, but you can kind of see it doesn't have a ton of recoil. Relatively easy to control. It does feel like it kicks initially. But you can kind of see the target there. Just iron sights. If you want more accuracy at range, you got to use optic, right? Like, obviously, it'll have a cleaner sight picture. But overall, relatively clean iron sights. You're able to hit the targets. It has a good fast fire rate. and it kind of balances out. You can see it kind of gets a little bit away, but that target's at 50 meters. You're not going to use an SMG at 50 meters. Realistically, it just doesn't happen that often. We got the M4, which it kind of ends up being slow. A lot of people are going with the iron sight one, and then you build it. This is kind of how I would build it. I mean, you got a sniper. You could get rid of the optic, maybe put on a laser for better aim down sight, or to get better bullet velocity, because this thing is a little bit slower. We'll have it built out like you see there. The high tower, this is what a lot of the pros are using when they're holding lanes, but they're not shooting people at 100 meters, right? Like, that's what we're trying to solve for. It gets a little bit tricky when you go through the attachments. This one, just like the TAC, it has no recoil in the beginning, and then it can get a little bit away from you. You can see kind of how easy it was, even at 50 meters, to destroy the target, but you can see it starts getting away, and as the target's super far away, you might need to do burst firing like this, where you're only firing a few shots to kind of reset that recoil pattern and not get to the wonky part, and that'll be more accurate than just holding the trigger where it starts to get a little bit reckless. Moving on, we got the RAAL MG, and this thing is very disgusting, but it is slow. It is an LMG. We got high velocity. We're rocking that with the recoil smoothness, recoil steadiness. We're getting already decent bullet velocity there. We're running a suppressor where we can actually go with the recoil smoothness. Obviously, we can get a little bit more steady. We got the laser, which helps to aim down sight speed a little bit. We got this demo stock, which we're not really touching too much. You could go with the aim down sight speed on there, and then we could also go the aiming idle stability to kind of help out a little bit. And then you can kind of see this one is tuned the way we've done that with the other things. And this is how this one is. Very hard hitting, but just like the other ones, after a certain amount of bullets, it does get a little bit bouncy and gets a little bit hard to control. So if I'm shooting, you can kind of see it's going mostly in the same area. And in the whole mag, I'm kind of hitting the same spot. So with this build, very solid. It's just that it is an LMG, so you're going to be a little bit slower, and you're going to want to make sure you have a comfortable close range, because if you get caught reloading, you're going to want to be able to swap guns out and then be able to hit your target the way you want with whatever your secondary is going to be. So this one could be saved where maybe you really feel like you got a floor loot gun, or you happen to kill someone at a stronghold, or you got a stronghold gun initially and then you go to a loadout, or you go to a buy station and buy this gun for 5K. Then you're set. So that's currently 10 guns that I think are worth using currently within Warzone. I think things will shift drastically as time goes on. Hopefully this helps you out. Appreciate all the support. Thank you for watching as always. Have a great day.